We are live. We are live. All right. Don't look at the time. Don't do that. We are live. And you know what? Aaron Rodgers, he's talking. What is he doing? Talking about our franchise. We're gonna have to break that down, but we also looking ahead because as we know, it's draft time, right? 7 days. 7 days from today, we are going to see who the Aaron Glenn era chooses as their first draft class. So we are talking about it all, and we're talking about it with somebody, a veteran, seasoned veteran, all right, who's been talking about this team for almost 20 years. So you do not want to miss this. We are live, baby. It is Boy Green meets Wudi.
Can you guys help us get a jet chant here? Yeah, going.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Come on in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go!
J-E-T-S, jet, jet, jet! Let's go! J-E-T-S, jet, jet, jet! Let's go! There you go, Wudi!
Third Party Thursday.
Chris joining us here on the program with a capital P here on the program.
Jake Asman, come on down. How you doing, good sir?
Wow, what an intro. I mean, Boy Green is known for having the intro, but Wudi, that was unreal, man. Thanks for the kind words, son.
We are men of many names.
My favorite Austrian Jets fan right there,
Yeah.
baby.
Boy Green
Meets Wudi. Welcome to another episode of Boy Green Meets Wudi. It is your boy James Wudi, and you already know we are Wudi, rocking everywhere. But today, we actually have a special guest because you know those Syracuse Mets, they doing their thing. Boy Green is out there calling that game, okay? But today, we have a special guest, all right? Somebody who has been covering not just the Jets, but New York sports for almost 20 full years. He is part of SI Nation. So not even just Gang Green Nation, not just New York Knicks Nation. We're talking about SI Nation's own Geoff Magliocchetti. Come on down. How you doing, my good sir?
James, thank you for that lovely introduction. That's fantastic. Actually, guess what? It's Boy Green. I just shaved, so looking good. No, no, I am not Boy Green, unfortunately, but Geoff Magliocchetti here. Thank you for that lovely introduction, James. You guys do excellent work and really appreciate you guys having me on the program.
Of course. Thank you for making it. It is a pleasure to have you. And, you know, as you and I know, right, we were talking about, what would be great to talk about, 7 days before the draft. What would, what could we discuss? We had some ideas. And then Aaron Rodgers just dropped a bomb. On us. And now there's a lot to pick away from. Pat McAfee went on there and he had a whole lot to say about the New York Jets. So as a New Yorker, right? I feel like, we got emotions, we got feelings, we have pride,
We do.
So to see somebody of his stature come on their public platform, everybody's seen it, everybody's talking about it. What are your initial thoughts on Aaron Rodgers' remarks on this current Jets regime?
This really shouldn't be the Jets' problem anymore. And I think this is going to be something that is going to be very reminiscent of the Jets tax that the Jets have to pay. Because the Jets tax I basically define as look no further than my big example in this, the butt fumble. If the butt fumble happens anywhere else, maybe Cleveland, maybe Detroit, but if it happens anywhere else, it's forgotten about in 2 weeks. With the Jets, of course, it's comedy for the ages. So there is a bit of a Jets tax played in this, and there's going to be so until Rodgers, if and when he chooses another team. But this is what's interesting about Rodgers. I think we are at a point where Aaron Rodgers is not going to gain or lose any fans at this point. Everyone's mind is made up about Rodgers at this point. You either love him or you hate him, unless he does something truly charitable, truly heinous. No one's opinion is going to change on Rodgers. He talks and he says weird things. In the grand scheme of the NFL, is it really that bad? Probably not. You have guys who have done much worse in this league. So it doesn't take much for me to get worked up over Aaron Rodgers. Having said that, I think we're seeing that the Jets kind of dodged a bullet here in this case. Because when the Jets first got rid of Rodgers, announced that they would not bring him back for another year, I was a little skeptical on that because I said, why are you creating a need where there was none? Because say what you will about Aaron Rodgers, the Jets' primary issue was not the fact that Aaron Rodgers was at quarterback. He didn't actively lose games, which in this day and age of Jets quarterbacking is perhaps the nicest compliment you could say about a Jets thrower at this point. With all due respect, it's true. You could say that about these guys. Like Josh McCown was another guy like that. He didn't actively lose games for the organization. And Tyrod Taylor, I think, could be another one like that. He's made a great career out of that. So good for him. And it's great to have him on as a backup. But I digress. It's looking like the Jets have avoided a bullet in this situation because the fact that Rodgers hasn't chosen a team yet, it's like, come on, get this over with. Just move along. This has turned into Brett Favre 2.0 to the point where, you know, we are a Minnesota Vikings sleepover away from this being the Brett Favre situation 2.0. Because remember, the Vikings sent a contingent over to him. I think Ryan Longwell was involved. It was a whole thing back in the day, but with the Favre situation. But, you know, it's not the Jets' problem anymore, thankfully. And we are seeing that Aaron Glenn was in the right, and it's a firm display of power in the Glenn era. There are a lot of parties in the NFL these days that I think would appease Rodgers a little bit. They would like to have him on this roster, and they don't want to deal with the drama. They don't want to deal with this nonsense a little bit. For Glenn to come out and make one of his first acts to firmly tell Rodgers, no, we're going to move on without you. No, this is a new era. I think that's a resounding compliment of the Glenn era to date so far. So I think this is a step in the right direction for New York. And Rodgers, again, I don't fault him. In a way. He wanted to tell a side of the story. He goes on McAfee and he's unfiltered. That's his thing. He's made a reputation out of it. But I don't see how he comes out in the right in this because what reputation he had left in New York, it's already dwindling, and by the time we get to September, it might be fully gone.
Well, allow me to throw in some devil's advocate. What I do agree wholeheartedly is that Aaron Rodgers is no longer our problem. Mm-hmm. I've been looking forward to no longer talking about Aaron Rodgers, every day. But here I am on a show with my man Geoff talking about Aaron Rodgers. So
that tax is talking about Aaron Rodgers, the three certainties of modern Jets football.
Every day. But here's where I have an issue.
Go ahead.
Because Aaron Glenn, he came in here, right? Darren Muji, right? They came in here and they said, we are exhausting all options, exploring all possibilities, leaving no stone unturned. This is a pretty hefty stone. And they didn't turn it over. They threw that in the pond. They look like my son out here just skipping rocks in the pond. They said, here you go. They didn't ask him any questions. They didn't get a feel for where he was at as a player. And knowing, like you said before, right, you created a need at QB, but he was part of a package deal. You had Devontae Adams as well. So to say, okay, we are going to get rid of these two very talented players with amazing chemistry, wouldn't you want to at least get a feel for, what his mindset is, or even just insight? One thing that, Boy Green always says when he talks about, we brought in prospects for this visit, is like just picking their brain about maybe what other people have said,
right,
or the head coaching interviews. Well, Aaron Rodgers, he is coming from one of the most well-run organizations in the National Football League.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So he knows what looks right, what doesn't look right. Wouldn't you want to, in 2 hours, right? Because that's what he was expecting to have the conversation. Wouldn't you want to pick his brain for something like that?
If it was anyone else, I'd agree. But the fact of the matter is, Rodgers has burned bridges with everyone in the Packer organization, it feels like. And if you bring him in to pick his brain on that, don't you feel Rodgers wouldn't have he wouldn't have nice things to say about the Packer organization? Rodgers is talented, but he also has a bit of an ego. I don't think anyone can deny either of those points. Even the staunchest Rodgers defender, the staunchest Rodgers critic can't deny. He's the best of both and worst worlds. Talented, yet egotistical. And I don't think he would want to give the Packer organization credit in a way to what transpired down there. So I totally got what you're saying 100%. Like, if you have an all-time passer in the room. You do want to pick his brain a little bit, find out what worked for him, find out what led to Green Bay becoming an endlessly winnable organization, because that franchise went from Favre to Rodgers like that, and they rarely lost a step in there. But Rodgers has this way about him that, he burned bridges with the Packer organization, and like Michael Jordan before him, took it personally. So I feel that while you could and while you should, I'm not so sure Rodgers would, if that makes sense.
But what about his insight on the very organization that they're in? Like, include, like, even like the players, what Garrett likes, or what, just the different personnel that matters to them.
Yeah, you got me there.
Have somebody of that IQ,
yes,
give you, their feedback on, what they think. Like, you can even just ask them right off the rip. Hey, Aaron, we're thinking, we don't know what we want to do yet, but like, what do you think would improve this team the best? And just go from there.
I think that if it does feel like Glenn and Moogie went into that meeting with their mind made up, and it's hard to blame Rodgers for feeling a little slighted by this. But then again, if Rodgers comes out and says, look, you made me fly out here for 2 hours, you made me fly out here for nothing. Then if they don't do that meeting, he says, well, you should have told me that to my face. You should have invited me to the facility and whatnot. Doesn't that sound like a Rodgers thing to do, unfortunately? But that there you may have a point. So but unfortunately at the same time, I think the Jets wanted to start fresh. They wanted to kind of push this era. They're in a new stage of this rebuild era. And unfortunately, there are multiple chapters to this Jets rebuild. They want to start fresh. And I think one of the themes of the Aaron Glenn era, at least in year one, you're going to see, it's much like the first season. It's much like the original season of Saturday Night Live, the not ready for primetime players. Guys are going to come in and they're going to audition. Come in, we'll give you an opportunity, and you will see if you can stick around for the supposed good times ahead. Now, there are solid building blocks around here. I believe you mentioned me before that Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, they are in attendance for off-season workout programs, and I think that's a great sign. I think that's a good sign that Glenn has these guys heads on straight. They want to come in, so I think that's a good step in the right direction. You look at the rest of the roster. Justin Fields, I think that's kind of a safe type of deal to bring him in. Josh Reynolds is another one. Can he be a reliable WR2? Andre Sisco, ball hawk? Yes. Reliable starting safety? We'll see. Brandon Stevens, not so much a ball hawk, more of a tight window type of guy, but he will get an extended opportunity. He was frequently buried under very talented depth charts in Baltimore. So we're going to see him, and we're going to see if he's ready to take on larger responsibilities. The Jets are at a point where I think they're going to be satisfied if they float under the radar for a little bit, because they're tired of the headlines. I mean, again, you said it yourself. We're in the middle of April, and we're talking about Aaron Rodgers again. The guy is not going to play another snap for the Jets. And I think that the Jets kind of want to change their narrative a little bit, reclaim their own narrative and control it for their own benefit. And I think the approach they've decided to take so far is a step in that right direction. They're more than happy to float under the radar a little bit. Let Buffalo do their thing at the top of the division. Let Miami sputter in mediocrity. Let the Patriots rebuild. Let's do our own thing. The Jets are starting to reclaim their narrative. Do they fully have it back yet? I'm not so sure, but it's a long year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, Aaron Glenn has said as much in terms of, saying, hey, we don't want to, we want to work in silence, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said that, and this goes a long way, cutting the ties to, the weekly McAfee spot does that. I just, I already came to peace at right, because like you said before, this news, how old is this news? A month, 6 weeks, right? I came to peace with it. It just, I guess the thing that is just nagging, just that it's, I can't scratch is the way they went about it.
We've all been there. We've all
yeah. But I just think that whole, the preconceived notion, I just hope that, there aren't too many other decisions where they're going in with a preconceived notion that they're not even going to give the opportunity to change. Obviously, right, we're 7 days away from the draft. I hope they're not saying, "Oh, this is definitely our guy," no matter what, right? Because that's what I'm saying. If they do that for such a big decision like this, what other decisions are they approaching with that type of philosophy? So I'm not, saying red alert, but when I read the quote and then saw the actual clip of Rodgers saying it in his own words, I definitely had the because this could be an issue.
No, I totally get where you're coming from. It's a very fair point. But you know what? The Jets kind of need that back, I feel. The Jets kind of need someone. They need a firm voice in there. I say the same thing as a New York Ranger fan. Let's get John Tortorella back, because if any team in the history of the National Hockey League could use a John Tortorella dressing down, it's the Rangers. But I'm getting off topic. That's a whole other rant, but trust me. Trust me. But I think the Jets kind of need that. Robert Saleh was kind of that type of guy. He tried to get along with everyone, tried to be, too much of a player's coach, which was a welcome and stark departure from the Adam Gase era. I think that's what the Jets needed at the time, at least in the beginning. But once it became clear that, that sort of thing wasn't working out, you needed to adjust a little bit. And Saleh did not do that. It cost him his job. And that's what made the early firing of Saleh justified, in the sense, because now it wasn't just Saleh. Now it was like a whole wider thing. Saleh had probably kind of run his course in New York. That I still feel that was the right decision to move on. But at the same time, his early firing and the 3-9 record under Geoff Ulbrich, that kind of proved that, it was a team-wide thing. So I think what Glenn wants to do, he wants to get some sort of authority from on high back in, if that makes sense. Is this the right way to go about it? Again, we need to play games. Only time will tell on that. But you're absolutely right about the draft, because the NFL draft is the biggest crapshoot in the history of mankind. And you cannot go into that with any preconceived notions. You cannot go into that with any certainties. So if they do that, there will be trouble. I agree with you.
Yeah. So again, I'm not saying, that's definitely what we're going to see.
No, I get it.
And you bring up Saleh, which definitely is something that, the Saleh era, it really hurt me, man.
I get it.
I believed in that team, man. And like at the time of the hiring, right, he was candidate number one. Like, this was a get. So that's why I am so, I feel like skeptical even sounds too harsh, but
I'm not going to call the person out, but a Jet fan lingers in my X mentions the other day, still has all gas no break. And it got me thinking, I'm like, wow, that was 4 years ago Saleh was hired. And I just remember every Jet fan in existence had all get hashtag in their Twitter bios. It was crazy at the and I couldn't believe it. It was like seeing an endangered species out in the wild. I was like, still there. It's still there. Oh wow. But I totally get how that hurts. He picked up the win. One of the most Pyrrhic victories in sports, winning the press conference. It's unfortunate.
Yes, I mean, I was able to change my hashtag. It was tough doing it backspace that many times, but I did it. But see, like, I don't know how many signs there were, April of 2021 that hey, this might not work out. But because I was so hurt, I'm looking for those signs right now.
Sure.
With Aaron Glenn. And that's why I'm saying, like, ooh, that's why the rut row. I'm like, okay, all right, let me see about that. Let me see about, is this foreshadowing of what's to come?
I think you're right in the sense, because there are aspects about Aaron Glenn that are too good to be true. I mean, he fulfills so many things. Brilliant defensively, brilliant in the game of smash mouth, and brilliant in the game of smash mouth football. Loves to get pressure on the quarterback. Former Jet, and a guy who knows how to win in New York. So it's like everything works out. But but you look a little deeper, you're like, oh, there's some cracks in here. You worry about that. It's almost too good to be true. And the NFL has so many cases of this. It feels so perfect. So what is going on beneath the surface? So I don't blame you for looking for those cracks. And I think this could be one of them. If he is going to institute a my way or the highway situation, look, that works. The Patriots did that for 20 years and look where it led them. But you need to have the Belichick resume before you have the Belichick attitude, really.
Yeah, I would agree. And Belichick came from where? They came from the same place, Bill Parcells, right? The great Bill Parcells. So that could be what we're looking at.
If I may, this team kind of reminds me of what they were going through in '97, because Belichick, remember, leaves New England because his quote, I love this line: if you're going to cook dinner, you might as well let me shop for a few groceries or something.
Yes.
So that's why he wanted New England, got it in New York, and obviously things are not that dire. The Jets did win more than one game last year. I know it doesn't feel like it, but but they go in, put up a very respectable 9-7 effort. If you could do something like that this year, I think you can be really pleased about the course of direction for the franchise.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, hey, what is Vegas said, over under 5.5 wins. If
9 wins, they'll throw a parade.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to address a comment we got here from Jared B. Wish I knew what Rodgers said. So I guess we didn't actually say specifically what he said. But pretty much, and I don't even want to I know we just talked about it, so I don't want to harp on it too much.
I mean, we have our own comments to talk about here. We can't do the entire Rodgers. He was on there for 40 minutes, I think. So
yeah, yes. But pretty much what he specifically said as it pertains to the Jets, did not like the way he was treated.
Yes.
Right. He flew across the country. He also threw out on his own dime, but he has a lot of money. But yeah, flew out there. Immediately he sits in. Aaron Glenn just walks out the room mid conversation. Actually, Rodgers said runs out the room mid conversation. Comes back with Darren Muji, the GM. Darren Muji said, "Hey, you still want to play football?" And Aaron Rodgers said, "I'm interested." And Aaron Glenn said, "Well, we've actually moved into a different direction. We don't need you." Right? Rodgers said, "Why?" Aaron Glenn said, "I don't want to be saying something and people are looking in the back of the room at you." And Aaron Rodgers, pretty much was like, "Well, is that what you think would happen? Like, you don't know me." Aaron Glenn said, "You don't know me." And Aaron Rodgers said, "Well, that's why we're here, is to meet each other." Didn't go too much into detail from there. And the conversation, he walked out 10 minutes later for a conversation that he, in his mind, was expecting to be 2+ hours. That's pretty much what Geoff and I have been reacting to the first 15 minutes or so of this episode.
Well summarized. And yeah, look, it is unfortunate. Rodgers is talented, but he has built this reputation for himself. So I don't know how he can, I understand if he felt like he wanted that conversation to be longer. I just feel like, he's gotten to a point where it's thank you, Terrence Hill. I think he's gotten to a point where it's just, you need to move on. This cannot be the Aaron Rodgers show. Pat McAfee, that's the Aaron Rodgers show, and that's fine. They built a sterling reputation. They built their bread and butter on that. You want to do that? That's fine. But for the Jets, they can no longer afford to fund Aaron Rodgers' redemption story. So I think that I think that while you're absolutely right, the means were probably not the best way to go about it. But I think the Jets will be healthier. They have a clear path to the offs. They have a clear path and a way forward with the Rodgers conundrum out of the way early. Because look, if they played Rodgers' game, they would be going into this offseason program not knowing who their starting quarterback is. So I think that's a win of itself.
Well, I think that's one thing I would say, though, is that I think the only reason why Rodgers is taking so much time is because he thought he was a Jet. Like, it's not like he said, "Oh, like, I'm not, should we play, you ready to play football?" He wasn't like, "Oh, well, I don't know." Like, no, I think he was ready to right the wrong. They kind of blindsided him. And now he's like, "Well, do I want to restart and do this all over again with a different franchise?" So I do think that that's a factor in it. Like I think he would have been ready to come back if he liked Aaron Glenn's vision. We got super chats. I'm gonna try to keep up the Boy Green vibe. I'm not sure if I can find the clip of his beautiful daughter Zariah Luna, who we usually play with the super chats. Oh, I got it.
Wow.
All right. We got two super chats, so we got two Zariah Luna.
Wow.
The first one, it's not going to be too popular. His name is Fire Aaron Glenn, and his comment is Fire Aaron Glenn. He's appeared here a few times with this same comment, and he pays money to get it shown on the screen. So, that's what we'll say. Leave it at that. And the second one, good luck, Bum Rodgers. It's getting heated. It's getting a little heated in the comments.
Well, not the way I'd spend money, but that's what makes America the free nation it is today. So their prerogative. Enjoy.
Yes. We're getting some other comments in here. I feel like this is a yes. How is this not a? I'm interested is not a yes. Are you guys serious right now? Like what? So if you like ask a girl out on a date, she says I'm interested, you're gonna be like, she rejected me? Is that what you guys are gonna say? Come on now.
I don't know, because that's a tough example, because I don't want to annoy the person, and but the Jets did the smart thing. They moved on. They went to someone who did want to go out with them.
Yeah.
Now, Justin Fields, of course, he's had a couple of tough breakups with Chicago and Pittsburgh. But how many great romantic comedies start off with the idea of, you know what, it'll work for me. So let's see what happens. And this type of romantic comedy, this isn't one of those big budget big budget ones. This is like one of those mid-tier ones.
Yes.
They used to make a lot of these back in the early 2000s, and they turned out to be classics in their own sense. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, for example. You look
yes.
At
Ooh.
Yeah. I referenced that. I did a Nick piece, and they were in the finals, so that's what made me come to mind. But yeah, we don't see much of that anymore. It's not like one of those big budget ones. Trying to think what a good example of that would be.
A big it's like Friends with Benefits, one of those.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
Yeah.
But more people know what How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days was with Friends with Benefits, I feel. So
definitely 100%.
I think so. It's kind of like the current Jets kind of resemble big budget Hollywood franchises in the sense that it's a cool concept, but they botch it horribly. And we've seen that with like so many books that get adapted into the big screen. Definitely. And then like 5 or 10 years pass and the studio's like, you know what, we have the IP, let's do it again. I think that's what the Jets are trying to do right now. They went for the big budget actor in Rodgers in a sense, but now they're like, ugh, that did not work. So let's go with the unknown. Let's cast an unknown in the role and we'll push forward. So that's what I feel Justin Fields is. And will it work? Who knows? But I think the Jets are they're content to kind of linger in the background at this point. The key is going to be patience with Aaron Glenn, I feel, because this era, I always grew up with the concept of football coaches, you get 3 years to kind of do your thing. But lately in the NFL, leashes are shorter than ever, and I'm not sure I like that. So
yeah,
let's look. Even Saleh got 3+. He got nearly 4. So I think patience is going to be the key here. But I considering the rest of the AFC outlook and considering the way things panned out, there could be much worse things for the Jets. Again, if you can somehow make this like 97 somehow. Throw that parade. I don't even care. Throw that parade.
Definitely agree there. If we can make it work, I do see. They definitely have a plan, and I think you hit the nail on the head with that metaphor of what the plan is. So we'll just like we keep saying, we just gotta see them play. We gotta see them play. But one question I cannot let you leave without asking this question.
Please.
I haven't even addressed it with Boy Green because I know his answer and it hurts me too much.
I am honored. Please go.
Are Brees Hall's days as a Jet numbered, in your opinion?
I'm interested.
That was perfect. I'm not gonna...
Okay. I was contemplating whether to use that one. I'm so glad you made it a yes/no question.
Yes.
Because I want to give you a yes/no question, and frankly, I don't have one. Because here's what I say: should they be numbered? Probably not. Are they numbered? I'm leaning towards yes. Because here's why. Because Glenn, I think he came out and said it at the NFL meetings. I think this comment was. He was insistent on using a tandem running back set, and he has done so before. Look how Detroit was. I know he didn't have a direct role in it, considering he was a defensive coordinator. But look at the way Detroit rolled to success with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think, and New Orleans even did to a lesser extent. Alvin Kamara and
well, they usually have some, like they always. I feel like they rotate, but Jamal Williams is there. No. Not Ingram.
Yes, Mark Ingram was wrong. He was
okay. Yeah,
I think he was around for like the final stages of Mark Ingram. Okay, so Glenn is he knows what tandem running backs look like. I'm not sure that's the right move with this. It's great that you believe in Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. I think Braylon Allen has tremendous two-way ability. We saw that last year. But is that really something you want? Is that something you want to hit fast forward on at this point in the franchise timeline? I'm not so sure. You need, from the Jets' perspective, you need as many weapons as you could possibly can. If you truly believe that Justin Fields is your guy and you want to give him a legitimate opportunity at the quarterback spot, you need to surround him with as many established weapons as possible. Brees Hall he's in this weird purgatory where it hasn't been proven he can't be that weapon. Injuries have kind of eaten away with that a little bit. Constant turnover on the offensive line has eaten away at that. So it's never been proven he can't be that guy. And I think the last thing you want to do is kind of, annoy him a little bit in the sense that, you want to use a tandem set out, and you want to do it no less with two inexperienced developing guys in Allen and Davis. Because look, they do have potential, and we saw flashes of that last season from both of them. Allen in particular, I thought they did a solid job last year. Definitely. But is this the message you want to tell to a guy like Hall, someone who you bestowed a great amount of trust in? Hall, I believe, wasn't he the first running back chosen in his class?
He was. Yeah,
he was. Yes. Which is a shame. I really liked Michael Carter at the time, but I grew to appreciate Hall. So
I felt the same way.
When that happened, I was like, "Ooh, is that the right move?" You have Michael Carter and a fourth round steal, two more years of Michael Carter. But Hall turned out to be that explosive option.
Oh my God, electric.
And I understand the move the Jets were trying to make too. They were trying, because picking going the best player available route, that's a luxury that the Jets, have not been able to realistically or legitimately use in such a long time. That's the move you make when you're the proverbial one player away from something great. So I felt that was a bold move for the Jets, and Hall has fulfilled those expectations in certain areas of his game. But if you put that aura of doubt in him, as if to say, like, look, we like having you around, but you're going to be sharing the ball with two sophomores who have yet to take on the burden of primary rushing duties in any lasting point. I think that's going to put some doubt in his mind, and it's going to at least have him looking elsewhere and saying, maybe I could do better elsewhere. And suddenly it's a trade deadline, and a team that desperately needs a running back come calling. Suddenly you have a decision to make.
Yeah, I mean, I just bought his jersey.
Oh no! No.
So maybe I am the curse, but
no. That's why my mother always got me blank Ranger jersey for Christmas, because
that's how you gotta do it. You gotta get the blanks. But with Brees, like I feel like he embraced Braylon, right? They were calling themselves the Killer Bees. I think they want to be that duo, the Montgomery and Gibbs, Sonic and Knuckles type duo. I think they embraced that. It obviously didn't come to fruition at all. But I don't know how much of that is on them versus the offensive line. Keith Carter, right? They ran the fewest attempts of any team in the league. So, how is that going to happen, under those circumstances? So I would love if Aaron Glenn, Tanner Engstrand, the offensive staff, right, was just able to implement a scheme that just was able to create holes for these guys and have them be that duo that they said they were, Killer Bees, buzz, 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 all over the 2025 season. But to, float out the name Ashton Genty and, other possibilities, Brees Hall as a trade pick, trade piece, and to say, oh, well, you're resetting the clock at running back. How much are you really reset? Like, it's the cheapest position on the offense. So what is it? 8 mil, 10 mil, like, because even Saquon, who just won the Super Bowl, everyone is right. He is RB1. I would say probably.
Hard to argue.
He's still not making more than what Garrett Wilson is. He's probably making half of what Garrett Wilson is going to get extended to. And we all can agree, Brees is not Saquon, right? He has not produced that Saquon numbers.
Not at all.
We literally could be talking about 8 mil a year. You're gonna, get rid of this person who has the potential, the ceiling of top 5, who, like you said, hasn't proven that he can't get there yet, right? Just to save 8 mil and go with a different running back because this is a deep class. I just feel like that part of it is crazy to me. I think the continuity of having Brees there, Braylon there, they've embraced each other. They gave themselves a nickname, Garrett, all that, the type of camaraderie. I think they are capable of being Montgomery Gibbs, and to trade away Brees just because of 8 mil or, whatever that next contract looks like. I personally believe that's a mistake.
Running back is in such a weird spot in the NFL. 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, I would have said, go for Ashton Genty. That'd be awesome. That would really invigorate the fan base. To bring a monster and a college football legend like that guy in, that would reinvigorate the fan base like no other. But in the modern NFL, before Saquon came in this year, I used to cite this stat a lot. If I recall correctly, we were in the range of, I think, the prior 8, 9, or 10 Super Bowl champions. They did not have a rushing program that ranked in the top 20, I believe. Now, don't quote me on that. I don't have the exact.
I remember that stat. I think it even goes back further than that, actually.
Because I think there were 2 exceptions in there. It does go back further but there were 2 exceptions, and those were I think it was Marshawn Lynch in Seattle, and the one year the Patriots had LeGarrette Blount, I believe. I think those were 2. So I apologize for not having that data immediately on me, but I think running back, but Saquon. There will be some fallout from the Saquon Barkley case, because you are going to have teams that say, "Hey, it worked for the Eagles. Why can't it work for us?" But what people forget about the Eagles is that they surrounded him with the right talent in there. And if Braylon want to do this together, okay, I'm for it. Yes, do that. It's a players' league. It's a players' team. Let them do that. Figure it out amongst themselves. And if they want to replicate what Glenn had, or at least witnessed in New Orleans and Detroit, I'm all for it. But if we're going to get to a point where I think it is something you have to think about. If we get to a point in the trade deadline where, unfortunately, let's just don't freak out. I'm just posing a hypothetical. You're 1-5. You're like, oh, what do we? I know it's far too familiar. I'm sorry. It hits to home. You're 1-5. You're wondering, what can we do to kind of, boost our future a little bit? Is there a more tradable asset? Is there a more tradable asset on this team than Brees Hall? That's the question. At least right now. Like if he was going like, is there a more tradable asset on this group than Breece Hall going in a contract year?
I would say, well, I guess right now, right, April 17th.
Yes.
Oh my God, I can't believe you would say that. I don't even want to be on camera. You know what? I'm interested. You know what? I cannot be saying that on camera. But if the Jets draft Mason Graham, I've already heard people now trying to get rid of my boy, another jersey in my closet, Quentin Williams.
Well, again, it's April 17th. Have him back on April 24th, and then I'll.
Yeah, fair enough. But yes, I guess as of right now, yeah. Elijah Vera Tucker is another one that comes to mind, but it's one of those two.
That's fair. That's totally fair. And again, next week we could be saying something entirely different. So, but that as constructed right now, that's the type of guy that teams at the trade deadline would love to covet. I'm not saying it'll happen. I just think it's something to think about. Yes.
No, and yeah, I've thought about it, unfortunately, and there are so many people that feel this way. So that it's been the talk. I haven't been able to really have this conversation on this show yet, but I just think the ceiling is so high. Like we really
he is.
With Michael Carter, I really liked Michael Carter.
Mm-hmm.
But there was never a time where I thought Michael Carter was going to be a top 5 running back in the league. I thought he was going to be a very serviceable 1,000-yard type of guy who was breaking tackles at such a high rate. I liked him, good personality, all that type of stuff.
Very, very Orlando Scary trunk candidate feels. I felt like
Ooh.
Never type of. I know. This is why I'm still single, because I remember these things. But never the type of guy that was ever going to be a lasting RB1 anywhere. But at the same time, you loved having him in your back pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Lamont Jordan was another guy like that.
But here's my thing. Like I think Breece can be a McCaffrey. He was 3rd in the NFL, not this past season. In 2023, he was 3rd in the NFL in scrimmage yards, just behind McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill. Those were the only 2 people above him.
And he had in his rookie season he was close. He was very close to 4 digits within the first 7 games of the year. So
he was on pace for 1,900 yards.
That's right. Look, he can be, but
yes.
Again, but then you have to wonder how much that knee injury is still affecting him in a sense. Is he ever going to be the same game? Is he ever going to be the same again? Are you comfortable with going into every series wondering oh God, is this the last one we're going to have prime Breece Hall? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And that's through no fault of his own. I always hate holding injuries against guys. This is why I always say guys like Steve Entman, Kajana Carter, Sam Bradford in a way. I was always like, can we really call them busts? They're playing a game where guys are throwing themselves at each other at, speeds of 40 miles an hour, and we're going to have the audacity to judge them for getting injured. And it's unfortunate. So I've never really bought that narrative. And is Breece going to end up being one of those guys? Only time will tell.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. As painful as it is, his story is still unwritten. I'm looking to see how it ends. I'm definitely not.
Not how it ends. Come on.
Yeah, how it continues. And hopefully it continues in the green and white. Let me see. Yeah, I think we had a lot to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we had our own topics, just to let you guys know, we had our own topics. We were out here, Geoff and I were brainstorming, and then Rodgers came down, boom, kaboom, out here. So we had to talk about that for a bit.
It's kind of the Rodgers way, isn't it?
It is. It really is. That's how he wants it. But we were still able to address our team, talk some Jets. And Geoff, let us know where we can find your work, especially talking about some of those other teams, right? The Rangers rant. I want to know what's going on. the other teams, the Liberty out here, the defending champs.
Yes.
Where can we where are all your plugs? Plug us
I'm on the I am part of the On SI network. I do a lot of work over there. Currently working with the my primary work for the time being is with basketball with the Knicks and Liberty right now. I also do work over for the for Connecticut and the Giants as well. So you can take a look there. I do want to get back into some Jets work, by the way, so that's excellent. So I would love to do something like that. Also, I am writing for a new position I started, Balls Life. That's some more basketball work over there. You can follow me on X at Geoff J Mags. That's GEOFF, the letter J, MAGSGEOFF. Yes, much like the famous spokes giraffe of the same name. But I think I think we got a lot done here, and really appreciate you. Thanks to you, James, and thanks to Boy Green for having me on. You guys do excellent work. It's nuanced yet lively, which some of you rarely see these days. So you guys do some excellent work. Appreciate your time and insight, and keep up the fantastic work. You too. You guys do great stuff.
Damn! Thank you, Geoff. Appreciate you. And we'll definitely have you back. All right,
Let's just say I'm interested. Let's just say I'm interested in coming back.
So I guess this is the last we'll see of Geoff. He's not taking any more snaps with Boy Green meets Wudi. We out here. But when Third Party Thursday show, comes around, that's one thing we do. We get 3 of us on here, so it will be Boy Green, myself, and you. We would love to have that going, keep that conversation, pick up where we left off. But definitely appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate yours as well.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you for riding with us. Over 300 people in the building. Appreciate you guys lively in the comments, giving us the feedback that we need. We got to know. We got to know. So keep it up. Thank you guys. It'll be Boy Green Daily in the morning, like it always is. And then for Boy Green meets Wudi, it will be next Tuesday, draft week. You already know we're going to talk draft, all that type of stuff. And we will see you guys later. Have a good one.